This is FM Gold channel of All India Radio Delhi. We now bring you a talk in a lighter vein, penned by Ranjit Lal and in the voice of Manoj Mainkar. The talk is entitled Swindlers List. Relax, listen, and try to match some similar experiences faced by you.
It's probably happened to you at some time or the other. You turn on your computer one day to check your mail and suddenly discover that you're 10 times richer than Bill Gates and the Queen of England combined. You've just won some humongous lottery, which you'd never heard of, and whose ticket you certainly have never bought. Nevertheless, you are the chosen one. So how do you get your hands on all that lovely money? They'll say to actually avail of the prize, you will have to send a small handling fee to them first, which is where the idiots have made their first boo-boo. Because the first question that springs to mind is that if you've just won $500 million, why the hell can't the lotterywalas deduct their handling fee from this amount and send you the balance? But of course, there are suckers who fall for this. They'll send their $5,000 or $10,000 handling fee to wherever they're told and sit back and wait for the moolah to come rolling in. Except that, of course, poof, the lottery and the prize suddenly vanish. Duh. Some people take the scam even further. They disdain the internet and use old-fashioned snail mail to seem more authentic. Some years back, my father got a letter purportedly from a lawyer in Lisbon. He explained that someone who had the same name as my father had unfortunately expired recently in the street, and it was his job to locate the man's nearest living relative. Needless to add, the deceased was a multi-millionaire and had left no will. So the nearest living relative had several $1 million to gain if he staked and could prove his claim. The Good Samaritan lawyer, after a great deal of searching, had unearthed my father's name, which was identical, and thoughtfully decided that he must be the poor rich man's nearest living relative. For all his searching, he didn't realize that my father had a fairly common surname, and there must be hundreds of thousands of people with similar names all over the country. We are over 1 billion strong after all. But no, he was the chosen one. Of course, my father had no relative anywhere near Lisbon, but that's beside the point. The lawyer said that my father had to stake his claim as the man's relative, which would then be legally processed by him, so my father could avail of the bequest. That it would be patently dishonest to make such a claim was of no moment. Very charmingly, the lawyer added that his fee would be 40% of the bequest, but some money would have to be sent in advance to get things underway, as he was already considerably out of pocket because of the hard work he had already done. And yes, there was a deadline. If the claim was not made by a particular date, the greedy Portuguese government would swallow the entire amount. Of course, it was all very official looking. The letter on an impressive letterhead, phone numbers, email address, the works. But yes, the letter had come by ordinary post, not exactly fitting for a missive informing you that you've just come into many $1 million. I let it rest in peace. There are all kinds out there trying to hustle a fast buck. Many years ago, I wrote a spoof in a business magazine profiling a fictitious business magnate who had made his fortune by supplying the finest quality stones that go crunch in your dal. Apparently, a certain percentage of these are permissible in any given weight, and the good man was meeting this demand by supplying top quality teeth breakers, which were indistinguishable from genuine dal. Some weeks after the article came out, I was forwarded a letter by the magazine written by the proprietor of a stone quarry, who wanted to get in touch with the stone in the dal magnet so he could do business with him. At some time or the other, nearly everyone's email has been hacked. Now you wake up one morning to discover that you're actually stranded on some remote Pacific island where a puffin has flown away with your money and credit cards, and a penguin has swallowed your mobile phone and your leg is broken in 3 places. A kindly polar bear has lent you his internet connection so you can get in touch with your loved ones and everyone else in your address book. Could they please send you $5,000 at the given address so you can buy your air ticket home before the polar bear changes its mind and decides to eat you. Needless to say, you're ill, distressed, and the natives are hostile. Could all the good people you know help you out in your hour of need? I guess there must be soft-headed and soft-hearted suckers who fall for this too. But don't they and the idiots who perpetrate this scam pause to think even for a second? Friends and relatives who know you well also know full well that you're not near any Pacific island hobnobbing with polar bears because they met you at a party the previous night. And nodding acquaintances would probably raise their eyebrows and reach for their phones, even if a penguin picks it up to check if you were all right. When this happened to me, I received several puzzled and tentative phone calls from a whole lot of people I hadn't contacted in years, and it was so pleasant getting in touch with them again and catching up. The only hassle was changing email passwords and informing the servers that this had happened, so could they please check it out? What I also did in this case was to try and track down the address where my distress funding was to be sent. Some town in Scotland, I think it was. Anyway, I used Google Earth, and yes, the address given had a street name and house number. 17, if I remember rightly. And hey presto, there was a street on Google Earth, and what do you know? There was a house number 16 and a house number 18, but, and I searched all over the place, no house number 17. There was a crossroad where number 17 ought to have been. So I wonder if the guys waiting for the money would stand in the middle of the intersection and wave their arms around and wait for delivery. I haven't quite fathomed out exactly how they actually collect the money from a fictitious address, but I guess there must be ways. Then, of course, there are the nuisance calls and SMSs you get on your mobile phone. They've been roundly condemned as being a damn pain in the neck and are illegal if you don't want them to receive them, and yet they keep coming. Don't the fools who are behind these calls and messages realize that all they're doing is whipping up white-hot hostility amongst their potential customers? You're supposed to win customers over, not drive them apoplectic with rage and want to smash their phones. Speaking of phones, on a more personal note, are the unsolicited calls you get from eager beaver executives working in banks and insurance companies. Some breathless lady or gentleman will introduce him or her good self at 100 kilometers per hour and proceed to outline some fantastic scheme or new deal at the same speed, never pausing for breath. Of course, you have to dish out X amount to be part of this great idea, and they want a yes from you right then, or the scheme will lapse the moment you put the phone down. I guess the poor chaps must be under enormous pressure to garner business for their organizations, and commissions may be in order. But there's a very simple way of stopping them in their tracks without doing something rude, like slamming down the phone. Just wait till they finish their repertoire and are coming up for air and eagerly awaiting your positive response. Then ask in a very interested tone, "Yes, but tell me, what did you eat for lunch today?" Or, in tones of sheer wonder, "Do you know today is Friday and yesterday was Thursday?" Or, "How many times have you been married? And do your children hate you?" You get the drift. But one thing is certain. The response that you get will make the call worth your while, much more than the deal that was being offered.
You just heard a talk in a lighter vein entitled Swindlers List. This talk was penned by Ranjit Lal and voiced by Manoj Mainkar. We welcome your suggestions and comments regarding our programs on our mail ID englishsw@gmail.com. This broadcast came to you on the FM Gold channel of All India Radio Delhi. Please stand by for the next broadcast.